Greetings. I apologize that I haven't been on in a while. I've been very busy. As you could tell from the last video I did make, preparing for the end of the harvest. When that's going to come, I'm not sure. Remembering that we're still in the first harvest season. Some of my plants are coming to an end and being removed from the garden, and I'm busy canning and freezing and drying things, and I will be doing another video, a follow-up on the second harvest. For those of you that were interested on the things that I'm working with right now. But I also thought it was very important to talk a little bit about other preparations that are going to be made for the coming months. If you will recall, I mentioned this in another video, that we need to be prepared. We're preparing not just by during the harvest. We're not just preserving foods to use later on. We're also preparing for things to come. And we don't just need to do this with food. I mean, I'm getting my pantry cupboard stocked up with lots of jars full of jams and preserves and salsas and sauces and things. But I'm also looking into my witch's cupboard and looking to see what kind of things I'm going to maybe need in there as well. I want to be prepared. Oh, there's nothing like being unprepared. You know, I think I mentioned a couple stories to you in the past. The first one that came to my mind was I had a friend who had a sick cat, and she asked that prayers be sent for her cat. And I, of course, said I would absolutely do that. And then I went to my cupboard and I did not have any Novena candles. So now I have a stock all the time. Keep that in stock all the time. Another thing that happened was I mentioned in a video before how I had the workings of a spell sitting on my altar, one of my altars, for quite a long time. And before I even said the spell, I had been ill and I had been just not feeling, things had not been going well. And I was not really feeling strong. I wasn't feeling strong enough to really work a spell. I didn't think it was really going to be successful because I didn't have the energy for it. That's what I want to talk to you about today, because there's a way we can get around that. And that is something just like we can preserve the fruits and vegetables of our harvest to be used later, we can also preserve our magical power, some of the strength, some of our, start out and store some of the magic for use later, store it in our witch's cupboards. And that's what I want to talk about today. I have two different ways that I'm doing that, and I just want to share as quick as I can those things. Some of them I'm sure you're aware of both of these things, and I want you to say that my way is not the only way. Please, I know there are other ways. This is just, again, my videos I'm talking about the way that I do it, some of the ways I do it, and I do it different ways, and I'll show you that right now. The first one I'm talking about is called a witch's ladder or witch's garland. It's also called a rope and feathers. I'll show you why in a minute. But first I want to show you, these are some traditional ones. These were made, and we keep these hanging here in our parlor. My husband and I made these years ago actually, with intention. These were traditional cords. I don't know if you can see, but I have a black, here maybe you can see down here, black and a white and a red ribbon, each of them, and braided into the cord are various different little stones and some beads and some bells and things like that. And this one is a little different. They're very similar, but they're, they vary. Each of us have our own personal things that we put in here. We did this in a ritual, and we made these cords, and they're kept. And this is these are to provide, this is not actually a spell necessarily. This is not a spell. This is just, it just has intentions. Each of these stones represents some kind of intention. Each of these cords represents some kind of personal intention for both of us, okay? My husband's represents one, mine represents the other. And they're just kept, and usually when you do something like this, You usually keep them in somewhere safe where they're not. Some people say store them where they can't be seen. Other people just say where they can't really be bothered. Well, I keep them here, hanging here in the parlor, because the only people that come into my parlor, which is normally closed, are people that are invited in, and I trust them where they wouldn't be in here. Because this is also where I do my readings. So, okay, I wanted to show you that, but this is not what I was doing today. What I was talking about doing today was the more traditional. I don't know if it's traditional, but this is what I normally think of when I think of a witch's ladder or rope and feathers, is this cord here. And as you can see, why it's named rope and feathers, because it is full. Excuse me, it is a braided cord again, and it has knots along the length of it, and each knot has an intention set into it, and a feather. And the feathers, this is not really for a specific intention. I use these to store magic, to store my power, because when I need something like this, and I'll keep this in my cupboard, and if I'm doing something in the future that I really want to boost I want to boost the message, I'm really in need, I don't feel like just a simple spell is enough, I'm going to boost it, I'm going to pull out something to boost it, and this is something that you can use to do that. The intention, I left some room at the bottom so that I can add charms. Oh, but first I want to say what it's made out of. That's why I think this is really very, very magical to me. This is something that and this is why it's worth storing to me, because it's a little unique. It's a little unique in its makeup. First of all, it is 3 strands, and 2 of the strands are yarn, just simple yarn, wool yarn, that I first of all spun, and second of all dyed. Remember when I went out and about and collected the fill daughter and made a dye? Well, this is some of the yarn that was dyed. It makes like a nice sort of, this is a golden color. Depending on what the yarn was, what the wool was initially. Some of it I got is more orange, and some I got is more yellow, and some I got is more, this is sort of a golden. But anyway, it's dyed, it's spun by my own hand on my drop spindle, and it is dyed by my own hand. And it's dyed with the daughter. Remember when I said before how the properties of daughter are very strong, particularly with something like, such as knot magic. Okay? Well, so I'm using it for that purpose. And there's 2 strands of this in the braid and cord, and the third strand is something else I did on my drop spindle, and I don't know if you can see it or not. But this is my own hair. I have spun my own hair, and I have plied my own hair into a 2-strand plied yarn, 2-strand. It's nice and strong. Look how strong. And my hair is very, very, I don't know if you can tell, you probably can, but my hair is very, it's thick. I have thick hair, but it's very fine. The hair itself is a very fine hair. But look how strong it is when I spin it. Okay, so this is my hair, my spun yarn, my dyed yarn with daughter, made into this witch's ladder. And so this is something that I'm going to put in my cupboard, and I'm going to save and use it when I really need it. This magic is stored. Now traditionally the way it is done, there's a lot of different ways. Sometimes, I can add some stones or some charms or whatever onto it, like you saw in this one, to represent different things. If I need it for a specific purpose, I can do that. If I like if I want it for protection, or I want it to bring money or whatever, I might add some different colors into the thing for those things. But if I'm also going to do something specific with it, like if I'm using it to bind or whatever, or to heal or whatever, a specific thing like that, prosperity would be more general to me. Like general, I just want to increase my money. So that way I might just do a spell, increase the power with this, add this to my altar, maybe hang it over my altar with the charms adorned, or again, put it in a place where people don't see it or they won't bother it or whatever. But if I want to use it for some reason, like I want to heal have an urgent, somebody needs healing, or I want to do maybe perhaps maybe use it for binding or something like that. The magic is stored in these knots, and I can release I can release the magic as well. And if I were going to release the magic that is stored over a period, and over here on this one, I have 9 knots. You can tell because I have a knot. Every time I have a feather, I have a knot above it. I put a knot above it, then I braid it in a feather. A knot above it, braid it in a feather. And I did that 9 times. So I have 9 knots. And what I would do is over a period of 9 days, I would put this on my altar, do my whatever my ritual was or spell work that I wanted to do, and then I would release 1 a day. Just like a novena candle, you know, you burn for so many days. This, I would release the knot. I would release that magic once a day. Okay. Then I would take all of this that's left, and I probably will bury it in the yard, or I might burn it. Okay, because then the magic will have been used. That's just one way of using it. It's sort of a fun way to use it. But anyway, my point is this will stay. The magic is in here. You can imagine the intent that is into one of these things. And you don't have to do it with your own hair. You don't have to be able to spin. You can use any kind of yarn. Like I said, you can use colored yarn like this or whatever kind of symbols you want. But the idea is when you're making it, you're putting your intent into it, right? When I was spinning, of course, I had intent. When I was putting the hair, just the act of braiding it and knotting it, just braiding it, put every little movement you make when you braid, right? It goes with intention, and that's why it is very, very strong. It's very strong. Remember I said how knot magic was so strong. It's been used forever, and I don't know if you know her. I can't pronounce her first name. I will embarrass myself if I try. But her name is Mrs. Penry. She has a lot of videos on YouTube, and they're wonderful. And she has one on knot magic. If I think of it, I'll put the link down below. But she talks about the history of it, and truly it was used. It's been used for hundreds of years. It's very common. It used to be used mostly for curses and things, and I don't know if I mentioned it before. I apologize if I did, but we were just singing a song. We just learned a song to sing that had that had a curse. A mother upset that her son brought home the wrong bride. She didn't like the bride, so she put a curse on the wife. That the wife, if she were to conceive a child, she would stay pregnant forever, never give birth to the child, which is kind of horrific. If you've ever been pregnant, it's kind of horrific. That you know, pregnancy is fun until the last few weeks you're like really ready to get rid of the baby, and she was not able to do that. And it was all on knot magic. And as a matter of fact, in the lyric, you'd find that's how they undo the magic. They find where the knots were tied in the shoelaces that were under the bride's bed, and they were able to untie the knot and release and destroy the spell. So that's interesting. Anyway, it's one way to do it. It's a lot of ways, and the important thing is when you're putting your intention, whatever it is, into the cord, as you're knotting it, as you are doing it, you need to speak your intention. You know, there's a lot of things online you can look at. Like they'll even say things like by knot of 1, my spell has begun. By knot of 2, it will come true. By knot of 3, so mote it be. There's like little rhymes you can say with every knot. But there's also, you just can do your own, make up your own, or it doesn't have to rhyme. Just what that you want to harness your personal power in here. So if you're going through the blahs, you have a way. You have a way to boost yourself if you need it. Okay. And it's really easy to do. And of course the feathers, the reason I use feathers, I love the feathers, but they're found for me. All the feathers that I use in all of my work are feathers that are on my land. I find on my land. Yes, these are all from my chickens right here. But I also have, we have a good population of birds out here, and you find from time to time feathers in the yard for whatever reason. So I always keep those and use them. Anyway, so that's that. Okay, this is a really fun, real simple way, and something that should be in your cupboard. If it's not in your cupboard, I recommend that you make a few and stick them in your cupboard, and save them for when you need them. Okay. Now the second one. Wait, let me get a drink. The second kind of magic, the second kind of item that I'm talking about, a way of storing, it's a kind of sympathetic magic, it's called, because it is something. Sympathetic magic is when something is used to represent a person. Okay, you don't need. The idea is you don't have to have the actual person in front of you to make some kind of change in that person or about the person. That you can use something to represent them, and the most commonly known is, of course, the puppet. Very, very popular concept. People understand the concept of a voodoo doll, kind of the same thing. But, voodoo dolls, I do not practice voodoo, but I know that it's not just as a hex, and people think it's all just about hexing or cursing, and really that's very far from the truth. And they're not unique to voodoo. The word puppet comes from a medieval word, popet, which just means a child or a small doll, a small child or a doll, and it's usually made to represent something. Now that doll can be made out of anything, and there's some wonderful different things. You have sticks and twigs and feathers and clay, and I wish Jude. I don't know if you remember Jude's video. She used to have she made them one day, one of my favorite videos. I'm glad I watched it several times because she has since taken them down. But she made puppets out of wax, on wax paper, and, or whatever. She melted wax in the shape of a human form, you know how you do, just crudely. And then you can add, before the wax, of course, is hardened, you can add things to make it represent a person. You can add, clippings or hair or, just endless things, right? Or other kind of things that you want to add. And then, of course, one of her recommendations was burying that. That is something to be buried. Oh, and this is something to consider. I do want to bring this out. If you're ever talking about something that you're going to burn or you're going to bury, be mindful of what kind of materials you use. You don't want to bury things, of course, into the ground. That's going to be toxic. You don't want to bury or burn things that are going to set off toxic fumes, or the fire will get out of control or whatever. So just keep that in mind. If you're unsure of your items, hiding it is sufficient. We're putting it in a jar or something and burying it like you would in a witch's jar or something like that. That would be fine. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out. Okay, now puppet magic on itself is very powerful, and it has to be used with care because it is really easy to represent a person in a form. Okay, now, and it's used for a lot of different things, like I mentioned before. Yes, it was done with hexes and things, curses, but it's also used often to bind lovers together, to protect loved ones from being harmed, to provide emotional and physical healing. It's very effective for binding or banishing situations that might warrant its use, or something like people spreading malicious gossip, or people threatening or actually engaging in some kind of abuse, physical, mental, emotional abuse, whatever. So sometimes it is warranted, but make sure, because this is just generally puppet magic is, I believe, it's a very effective form of magic. To please make sure, don't just use it frivolously. Don't use it for just anything. Okay, now I want to show you my puppets, and the reason I think it was really, my puppets are terrifically powerful. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because my puppets, remember when I did the video on the daughter, we were out about and collecting daughter, and I made the dies, which I used to dye some yarn. Okay, I made that dye, and I kept the dye liquor in the refrigerator for a while till I was ready, and then I dyed a bunch of yarn and some fabric and things. And in order to get the dye liquor from the daughter, you have to boil it. So all that's left is just the daughter itself, but it's still there. It's very much still there. It's very much still as powerful as it was. So I didn't want to just throw it away. I had to use it for something. So I used it, and I made poppets out of it. I made the most adorable poppets, I have to say. And what I did is I just made, I don't know if you can see. Now, poppets can be any shape, and they're usually in the form of a human form, human, not always, but I mean, you know, that's a very traditional way. Mine, since it's bird and the crone that is my thing, I sort of did a combination between the crone is me and the bird. You know, I just made little bird feet for the hands. That was just me. But anyway, inside, oh, guess what's inside? The daughter is inside. And also, the hair is, some of this is his daughter dyed, this orange, and this is all hand spun and dyed. This, all of the yarns that are the hair, they weren't done by daughter, but some of them were. The oranges one, everyone has something done by daughter. And then the other ones have, all of this other yarn is hand spun, and it's naturally dyed from another dye project that I did a long time ago. I had a bunch of yarn left over. So anyway, I have all these things. The fabric on these light colored poppets were dyed also with the daughter. So this is a lot of powerful stuff, right? A lot of powerful stuff in these. And I just have them in here. I'm keeping them in a strong box here in my witch's cupboard. Okay, because you just never know. And I have made them, what I want to show you. And then, of course, I have black ones because everyone likes black stuff. Especially if you want to do something like binding or something like that. A lot of people like the color black for that. But what I have done for these is I have dyed them with a pocket here in the front. There's a little pocket. I don't know if you can see on the black ones. Maybe I need to get a light colored one. Here you can really see it because the pocket is black. But I just have a little pocket there. And that is designed so that items can be tucked into a tag locks. We might want to call the items tag locks. Tag locks are just items that specifically tie this poppet to a specific person. Now remember, right now it's just a general in my cupboard storing potential magic, right? It's stored. Everything's ready. So if I really wanted to do something very powerful with this, if I wanted to bind somebody, if somebody's messing my name all over Facebook and I want to stop that person, I have a poppet. I can get a poppet and I will put something in the pocket. Then I will do further magic. I will do further work to make this poppet apply to that particular person. Okay, I can put some, if I knew the person personally, I might have hair, I might have fingernail clippings, I might have a scrap of fabric from their clothing. If I don't have the person beside me, I might have their name on a piece of paper, I might have their picture, I can tack into the pocket, and then I would pin it or sew it shut to keep it in there, and from that time forth, it would then represent that person. Now, the reason that I do this, I could also further enhance the magic of this by adding stones, adding more embroidery. I could write on the back of it. I could write all kinds of things. I could put oils or crystals in the pocket itself, right? Now, what is the purpose of these making them add? Well, first of all, you don't just have to, poppets, you can fashion it as you go. Like, particularly if you're going to use like a wax one, you might want to do that as you go. But if you really need something really, really strong, I really need some strong magic, I would look to something like daughter to help me out. Remember, daughter is such a binding magic, a binding plant. Being parasitic, it just takes over the host plant in such a way. The story, if you haven't seen my video, go back and look at my video. At least in the beginning, I explained about how daughter works, and it has so much power. But it has a season, it's in the spring and really late spring is when we can get it out here, and it's a limited supply because people really don't want it. So I have to go out and harvest the daughter. So, I only have so much at a time. So I want to keep it, and this is a way of preserving it, because once I extract the dye liquor from the plant, I have boiled and there's no bugs or anything now in there. It's just pure daughter. And that is really good stuff. It's really hygienic now. I can stuff but still get the magical properties. So, now, although these poppets are fashioned specifically with my magic, containing my, sort of my, in my style and whatever, and made by my hand, they can still be, I still have them up for sale. I do, because of the magical properties of the daughter. I normally would say, you know, and yes, you absolutely can make your own poppets. And that's very, very good if you do that. I really encourage you to do that. But if you really need something super, super strong and you don't have access to the daughter, that's why I offer these for sale. Because they're really, you know, you can apply this then. You can take this. And then you have my magic. You have the daughter magic, and you also have my magic on top of that to enhance your own magic. So 2 witches are better than 1, right? Plus the daughter, this is a real kicker. This is a real kicker. Okay? Anyway, I just wanted to show you these things. And I want to say, generally, oh, and you know, of course, I'm keeping them in a strong box. You know, I have this strong box, really, you know, to keep them in. It's old metal. And it's going to be then in my Magick cover, so that it's not going to be messed with. Even though they're not specific to anybody at this point, we don't want people to mess with things. We don't ever want people to mess. But remember, these are tools, just like the rest of the tools in our cupboard, the rest of the supplies in the cupboard. They are for whatever we want them to be for. What I use them for, what you use them for, are 2 different things, right? And yours, whatever you fashion yourself, is bound to be more effective for you than something somebody else fashions for you. But I'm happy to share these. Just like I said, I'm happy to share them if necessary. You know, you can see them on my website. But other than that, I'd love to know if you use poppets. That's really, you know, if you do use poppets, if you do use witches' ladders, what you use them for. Do you keep them? Do you, you know, some people will, like, do you keep them like witches' ladders? Do you keep them like this, in this form, where you have them all the time bringing you whatever energies you want them to bring you, or do you use them in this way for specific spell work? I'd like to know that. I'd be very interested. So please, I'd like your responses. If you could respond, I would really enjoy it. Okay? In the meantime, good luck. Keep your energies going during these harvest seasons, and harvest not only your garden things, but prepare for the winter to come. Prepare your magic cupboard as well, not just your kitchen pantry. Get your magic cupboard in shape so that you're ready for whatever you need to be ready for. Thank you for watching, and thank you for coming to my channel. I am Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.